Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Brighter podcast. My name is BatSheva.
And my name is Chelsea.
And my whole life is much brighter thanks to Chelsea.
And my life is definitely brighter thanks to BatSheva.
And we love to use stories, tools, and techniques that allow us to deepen our own relationship with ourselves and therefore with those around us and the world. And we love to share these stories, tools, and techniques with all of you. And today's episode is going to be a good one. It's called Would Setting Better Boundaries Change Your Life? But before we get into that juicy topic, we're going to go ahead and arrive in the space, as we like to say, which means just using our breath to ground ourselves wherever we are right now. So together, let's go ahead and take a nice, quiet, soothing breath through the nose. And when we breathe out through the mouth, breathe out anything ready to go, let it go. Breathing in through the nose, calming, quieting energy. Breathing out anything that's ready to go, let it go. Breathing in through the nose, calm, quieting energy. Breathing out anything ready to go, let it go. Wonderful. Welcome, welcome. And if you caught our last episode, episode 12 was all about what can we do to support ourselves when we go away, when we go on vacation, when we visit relatives, when we travel. And Chelsea just so happens to have literally just come back a few days ago from a massive, wonderful trip. So I thought we could check in with you, Chels. How did that go? Were you able to put the tools and techniques into action?
I definitely was. It's always interesting to see what the intentions are before I go on a trip and kind of not necessarily expectations, but just the plan that I have of like, okay, this is what I'm hoping to feel. This is what I'm hoping to experience, like all these different things. This is how I'm hoping to take care of myself and what I'm looking to implement and practice every day. And it always just is what it is. And I've found that being kind to myself and loving, no matter what that looks like, and also just like checking in that moment, because you can make the plans before you leave and try to plan everything out. I'm a planner, and I feel like a lot of people, they like to know what's going to happen. I feel like as a society, we don't necessarily like to leave a lot of room for the unexpected, or whenever like change comes about, it's like, oh, what's going on? I don't know. I don't know about this. And so for me, it was also just like staying in the moment and tuning into my body and what am I wanting right now? Like what feels good? Sometimes that was a nap, and sometimes that was not doing my whole morning routine or even any of it, and just, being there. And I honestly feel amazing, and I'm really happy with the way that everything went. And tying into today's topic of boundaries, I think that had a big part of it, because as I was on the cruise ship and as I was hanging with friends and doing different things, it was like, oh, like, what do I want right now? And kind of creating that boundary of like, oh, okay, like you can go and like do whatever you're going to do, and I'm going to do this. And I'm going to listen to myself and take a nap or take a shower or take my sweet ass time getting ready and really making it fun for myself instead of thinking about what other people are wanting. And then it also translated whenever I got home to maybe before. Whenever I've traveled, it's always been kind of as soon as you have cell service, or as soon as like you're not, on the boat anymore, checking the emails, checking the phone, responding to every single text, all those things. And I've kind of gotten away from that and really set boundaries whenever it comes to work and personal life, and even just like even a level deeper of like my self-care and my immediate environment before like tending to the external things. So that meant for me coming home and really prioritizing and like not tending to every single person or every single text or every single email, like really like, okay, today is Friday and this is the thing today. And before and after that, I'm going to be resting and I'm going to be unpacking and really for me, it's like setting my space and my environment and our home. Like it's an extension of me. And whenever it's chaotic, like we just came in and there's bags everywhere and costumes everywhere and clothes everywhere. It's like, all right, I'm going to get this all back in order so that like I feel inside my own mind and body in order. And then I can move on to the next thing. But it's kind of like a boundary there of saying, like, okay, this is what I'm doing now. And it's nothing like it has nothing to do with whoever's writing the email or the text or anything else. It's literally just like a personal boundary that has helped me to come back and to ease back into it versus like being thrown into it. It takes longer for me if I try to rush or put that much pressure on myself. And then, like, what was the vacation for if you come back and you're not recharged or replenished or your cup isn't full? You know, you just come back and you're like frantic and chaotic. Then those are the types of whenever I come home, I'm like, was it worth it? So I try to really be mindful. And this time, I think I nailed it. I'm feeling amazing.
Love that. I'm so happy to hear that. I feel like that's the perfect bookend to our last episode. Like, wow, and transition into this one. And actually really relate to what you're talking about because my sister is visiting right now. And I actually had a really hard time setting boundaries the first day she was visiting. And it was almost the opposite of your situation. It had nothing to do with her. I was really happy that she was visiting. I had asked her to visit. But I also knew that I wanted to kind of stay the course internally, like what you're describing, like make sure I was grounded within myself before I'm extending my energy to her. But what happened the very first day she was here internally was that I felt myself and I really didn't stop it, just kind of giving my all and opening my heart and opening my energy. And this is something that I realized just this morning, especially when I had a moment to journal before this episode. It's so interesting that my whole life, probably one of my absolute most difficult challenges, besides being patient, is setting boundaries. It's actually historically been probably one of the most difficult things for me to do. And what I realized this morning when I was thinking about it is that there's this very strong part of me that just wants to like, like what a mind meld is when you like come to like a total synthesis with another person. I feel like my whole life I've just wanted a heart meld with everybody around me, friends, schoolmates, classmates, colleagues, parents, siblings, friends, loved ones, lovers. I just want to like be them and be with them. And that part of me that's very strong within me as well, that has to do with my ability to be empathetic and feel another, which is a strength, also leads to confusion or has led to confusion because I have in the past lost myself in different relationships or sublimated my own needs, not even heard my own needs or desires when I'm with someone else because it just felt so automatic to just be there for them and help them. And I didn't expect it would happen right away with my sister that first day. I'm glad it did because it gave me a chance to look at it. And honestly, I left you the Daily W's that night. And one of my wishes was that I recenter myself and reground myself. And I really did so. And again, the strength of verbalizing our wishes and our intentions is incredibly powerful. And I witnessed that within myself because even that you weren't even available, you were on your cruise, you didn't even hear my Daily W's, but I still left them for you. And we tell this to our listeners and our clients that even just leaving yourself the Daily W's in a voice memo and then often listening back to them if you can, it's so powerful. It creates change because you have verbalized out loud. You didn't just keep it inside how you want it. And so That wish allowed me from then on to feel much more grounded and more within myself as she's here and visiting. And I had all the excuses like, oh, she just had a major life transition. She needs a lot of support. She was one of those people in Washington, D.C. when, like that lost their jobs due to the new administration. So, I mean, imagine that you're in a job that you think you're going to retire from, traveling the world, doing amazing things, and then boom, without any warning, loses the job. So it was really earth-shattering for her. But again, that's the excuse I use to like sublimate anything going on with my own life and just like make sure she's okay and tune into her and how's she feeling. And I don't think she benefits from that particularly either. But the problem is, I think throughout my life, I did look for partners and maybe even friends who probably did benefit somewhat. I think it's probably like a codependence vibe. And so, one thing I also thought about this morning is that because it's been in the past historically, I'm not going to define myself now by that, but in the past, it's been so hard for me to set boundaries. When I have and when I do set a very pure, strong boundary, everything changes. And I remembered the story specifically I wanted to share back when I was married. It had been 20 years. And we had had the coffee shop together for probably 8 years. This was 3 years ago, towards the end of our marriage. And I didn't know it was the end of our marriage. As far as I knew, I was going to be with this guy forever, although I was like sublimating so much of myself in order to like make everyone happy, kids and husband and work, and make them my priority instead of whatever could be hiding inside of me, like these creative projects and desires that I really wished and longed for. And then so there finally came a time that I felt strong enough, in part due to the work I was doing with my coach, and in part just the work I was meditating every day finally, and I was taking my walk every day, and I was journaling, and I had already begun for several years to strengthen my internal world. And therefore, I came to a point where I actually was able to tell my ex-husband I no longer wanted to be his partner in the coffee shop. I wanted him to either do it himself or find another partner. And I was doing a lot. I was shouldering like 80%, if not 100% of everything other than the creative vision and the coffee roasting, which was all him, and the brewing. So this was a massive declaration that I made. It wasn't without any warning because anyone could have seen I felt overwhelmed and a bit unhappy in that position already for quite some time. But I think for him, it didn't benefit him to really be able to acknowledge that because he needed and wanted me by his side in that position. And I played that role. So when I finally spoke the words to him and said, I'm not going to do it anymore. You need to find someone. I felt relieved. I felt like, wow, I thought maybe I would want to divorce you, but no, I just want to divorce the coffee shop. I was laughing about it. Well, not like a month and a half later, he came back to me and he told me that the marriage doesn't work for him the way it is. And, he wants to see other people. I was shocked. But looking back, I thought, oh, the boundary I set for myself, and I held on to it strongly because he would come back to me. Even after we decided to separate and divorce, he would try to convince me to go back and help in certain ways with a coffee shop. And I would say, no, it was so hard for me. And then he would say, well, the coffee shop will probably go under and I'll probably lose it. And, I won't have any money. I'll be devastated. And I was able to take a breath. And it was actually one of the hardest things literally I ever did in my life. That's how hard it is setting a boundary for me. Other people won't find this hard, but for whatever reason, this is my lesson. It's very hard for me. And I literally called upon all my angelic forces I did mentally. I was like, please help me, please help me, please have my angels talk to his angels. Please, 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 please. It was almost an out of body experience. But I said to him when he said that, well, I don't want that for you. And on the other hand, if that's really the case, maybe you need to find a different career path, because if it's all riding on me going back and doing that thing, then I don't know what to tell you, because I don't want you to lose the coffee shop, but I'm not going to be able to do that. And I almost said, let me think about it, but I forced myself not to. It was the hardest thing in the world. And then after that, it was like moving a tectonic plate. Everything shifted. And it was like the seed level of this very expansive, creative, joyful, free life I have today, where he's on his path God bless him, goddess bless him. And I'm on my path. We have our beautiful children, and I'm so happy. And I do think that in my case, I needed the full removal of that partner in order to express myself deeply. Now, what I'm hoping for is to be able to continue to strengthen my ability to set boundaries so that I can merit to draw into my life ultimately another life partner. I would love it, who I can be strong and set boundaries and be myself with, and who will support that. But also, I know that we're always bringing people into our lives who challenge and test us. So I have no doubt it'll just be an opportunity again and again for me to go to the next level, the next level, the next level, to set boundaries. So I invite everyone to send me strength for that, please, because I need it.
Oh my goodness, so beautiful. Yes, thank you for sharing that deep, deep story. I find it that it's oftentimes the people that we are the closest with that are really the hardest to set the boundaries with. It's the family that you've grown up with. I mean, I can think back to like whenever I left for college for the first time. Like you're used to talking every single day, like to my mom. And I don't have time for that because I'm doing 3-a-day soccer practices and I'm studying and I have all these other things going on and I'm trying to make friends and I'm trying to figure out like what living like completely on my own looks like. And so it's just like for me, it was feelings of like guilt of like, oh, like I'm hurting them or I'm disappointing them or I'm letting them down. And it wasn't until I actually started seeing the first therapist, and she's like, boundaries are not for boundaries are not for others. Boundaries are for you and for them. But it's also like clarity, kind of going back to what I was saying about like people like not wanting to, like the unknown can be scary. It's like whenever you set the boundaries, you're actually just like, it's like a lot more comfortable because then people know like, oh, okay, like this is what time. Like for instance, like with my family coming for my birthday, they wanted to come up for my 40th birthday. And I was like, of course, like I'd love to see you. But like I also had a vision in my head of what that birthday looked like. And normally I travel for my birthday. Every year, my birthday's around Halloween. We would go to a festival or we would go somewhere where we would be dressing up because I love to dress up in costumes and all this stuff. And so we were usually out of town for my birthday, but this year we're going to be in town for my birthday. And, I was just like, oh, I want to set up the tent in the yard and I want to have a picnic and I want to do, I want to go down by the river and watch the sunset. It was like all these things. And I think I had been fasting. So I really wanted to come off of the fast and have like really delicious, healthy food. And it's also things like that, like feeling like, oh, if they're going to come up, should we go to a restaurant that everyone likes? Should I pick a place that everyone's going to be able to find something that they like? But then it was like, oh, like this is like a boundary. Like this is my birthday. Like this is something that I get to choose. And so kind of like saying whenever I like set the boundary for that day, it was like, okay, well, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be, I'm going to be at the house. We're going to be eating some, like, we're preparing this food and you're welcome to come between this time and this time. And then we're going to be leaving to go to the river at this time. So, and you're welcome to come to the river too, if you want or whatever, but this is like our plans. And so that was like setting a boundary and saying like, this is what's going on, like you're welcome to participate in from this time to this time or whatever you feel like, but this is what I'll be doing. And so it was like, not like what I expected them to do or not putting any pressure on them. It was just saying like, this is for me. And that felt really, really good.
I do think it's true that setting boundaries is like important to do it all the time. And it's like the boundary muscle, like going to the gym and working your muscles slowly but surely, not just so that you bulk up, but that so that you actually are like a vibrantly healthy person who can lift and move and carry and not get a hurt back, and like proactively strengthening all your muscles and joints. And I feel like for me boundary work is like that, like all the time. Little boundary decisions help me in the longer run strengthen my internal resilience so that when it comes time to a stronger boundary, I'm able to do so. Like I was thinking about back when I was married and I was really, like I said, sacrificing my own desires and needs, and I barely even knew what they were just because everyone else's needs were so loud. And then that's what I heard and that's what I prioritized. So when I first started to like take a 10-minute to 15-minute walk every day without my cell phone, that was again a small thing, but it was huge because my family wasn't used to me being gone ever. I have 4 kids and they were like, "Where's mom?" Like they wanted my help, they wanted this, they wanted that. And I would disappear and they could not call me and they did not know where I was. That was like an interesting, amazing, looking back example of going to the boundary gym and working out my boundary muscle. And then I started to decide I wanted to do a 10-minute meditation every day. And there was no quiet area in my house. So as I've said before in some of the prior episodes, I had like a sleep mask and I would put it on. I would put a little sign on my door. And even if they walked in, if they saw me in the sleep mask, like they knew to leave me alone. After a while, I had to set the boundary. First, they would just interrupt me. They didn't care. So I was forced to, get strong and stern and become a little alpha in order to scare them off so that they wouldn't interrupt me in the future. And I also learned watching my ex-husband, who's super strong. He sets boundaries like a freaking boss. I was like, whoa. Sometimes I was like, don't do that and don't say no. And then I would see the kids flourish in that environment of structure. So I made a mental note. I was like, holy shit, like he's onto something. Like it seems to me, my soft self in that moment, like, no, you can't tell them that. And you can't tell them no. And you can't force them this, that, and the other. It seemed like very top down, like commander. But I saw that this wasn't like a partner relationship, a friendship. This was a parent and a child, and setting boundaries in that environment from the parent's perspective. Your story was cool because it was from the child's perspective, which is amazing. And when I'm thinking about it from the parent's perspective, it's actually so important for the parent not to be afraid, because I really, over the 20 years, I saw my children grow and flourish and become like really independent thinkers and strong and able to handle themselves and kind and service oriented. And I really attribute a lot of it to the fact that my ex-husband was able to lay down the law. And he did not give them whatever they want. He did not spoil them endlessly whatsoever. And it's interesting because now that I'm like with all the kids all the time by myself, luckily they're a lot older, but still there's 3 of them who are telling me pretty much constantly that I don't set enough boundaries with one of the other ones, because that one particular one will fight back and is very strong. And, I don't want to like call out which child it is, but bottom line, that child is an excellent boundary setter. And on the other hand, we kind of go to war because I am insisting on certain help around the house, but I don't insist that much because I really don't want to deal with the blowback. And so I'll have another kid do it, one who won't give me that blowback. And then rightfully so, those kids are like, why are we the ones that always end up again and again doing the dishes? that kind of thing. And I'm like, on the one hand, I got to pick and choose my battles. But on the other hand, I have to get stronger, I have to get stronger, I have to get stronger. And I do. I force myself and I have myself and I psych myself up. It's kind of embarrassing to say that it's this hard for me, but on the other hand, I am who I am. So I can only work with what I've got internally. And I use this playground, this wonderful gym we call life, to strengthen the muscles of my ability to set boundaries. So yeah, that made me think of that.
I love the fact that you bring to the table the perspective of being a mother, because I think about how hard, because you bring this little being into the world and then they're completely reliant on you for everything. And then whenever they get to a certain point and you have to like tell them no. And I can see that same thing like in my parents, like my dad, he had no problem saying no. But my mom definitely not, and we knew that. And we could, use that to our advantage. And it was like, I feel like it also leads to like self-respect. Like if someone respects themselves enough and they love themselves enough, then they are able to set those boundaries. And sometimes, like putting other people first, not to say that there's not a time to do that, but it's like, what is the norm? Like, what are you usually doing? And I can remember the first time my mom ever said no to like do a favor or something for me. And the initial reaction was like, what? Like, what do you mean no? But afterwards, I was so happy that she said no. I was happy that she was like saying no for something for herself. Like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to go do this. And whenever I hear you, whenever you share different things of like, you tell your kids, like, I'm not going to drive you in an hour traffic jam to go to something, I'm going to do this. Like, especially like older kids who can figure out other ways. If they really can figure things out, if you really are determined and you really want something, I feel like after you're over the age of 10 or 12, you can figure out how to get that to happen, especially with the internet and all the resources and Uber that will deliver things or food or people. If you have access to certain things, you can figure it out. And yeah, I love the parent perspective and the thinking about the different boundaries as a child. And then also in the relationships, it's like same with Hunter. I try to help him grow in certain ways. And then whenever it turns around and he's able to like have that boundary with me, it's like, well, I'm happy that he's growing. I'm happy that he's doing it. And good.
That's so true. I forgot about the other side of the boundary setting with the kids. It's all the time happening. And even this morning, I questioned after I didn't really set the boundary for myself because normally I would have Esther go to school on her own. And I've been taking her either because of it was raining or she had to have this like giant heavy bag to bring to school for her play. And then I sort of just assumed that maybe I would have to take her again this morning, but she didn't actually have the bag and it wasn't raining. And I not only took her, but I spent time helping her with lunch and with breakfast and all the things. And in the car, unlike, I mean, not every kid is like this, but she was very like, thank you so much. And I don't usually do stuff like that for her. So she was really grateful. And I felt that side of me that loves approval, just like lighting up, like, this is worth tearing down all my walls and boundaries, and that's fucking dangerous because like I was literally talking myself down, like, you shouldn't want her approval. That shouldn't matter this much to you. You need to remember you could have done your meditation. Like, so it's fucking interesting to find, like you said, even coming into your cruise and deciding when you'll do your morning routine and when you'll take a nap. The boundary setting also can be flowy and expansive, and we can do the thing and then decide, okay, we did it this way today. And now I remember why I don't normally do that because I need that time for myself. And I do feel like this morning it was great and I don't regret it, but like she's getting herself to school tomorrow kind of a thing. Yeah, so it's interesting.
And I think that's a huge part of it too. And about the boundary setting is to actually take the time and reflect on what happened and how you feel. Like, okay, today I made this choice, and afterwards I felt this way. And now moving forward, or tomorrow, whenever this same choice comes up again, I'm going to choose this option. And kind of being able to remember that, it's like, the self recognition and reflection. Sometimes I can remember moving so fast that everything was on autopilot, and there wasn't like, I didn't really think about like, oh, like how did I feel? I just like on to the next thing, or I'm in a rush, or like that's just thinking that that's just the way it was, and not remembering, oh, I have the power to make choices and change things. And just like you're saying, like setting one boundary can make your whole world, your whole life change. And change can be amazing.
I think that is an incredible place to stop this episode because, as you said, reflecting after you've chosen or after you've reactively either set or not set a boundary is literally the way to up level and change your life. It's that reflection afterwards, whether you do it internally, verbally, with journaling, using all the tools and techniques that we share episode after episode. So I love that as a stopping point. And so now let's transition, if you will, into our daily W bookend, which now that I'm saying it, I'm remembering I'm starting it out with a win and a wow. And then Chelsea will bring us home with her wish.
The daily W is also a great way to reflect upon the day, thinking about, what went great today? What am I grateful for today? Do I wish to carry on tomorrow? And I feel like a lot of times our wishes are about our behaviors, or are about, reflecting on something that we've done and moving it forward in the next day. So
100% totally. Exactly. And it is cool that we frame it with the wish. So we don't necessarily come down hard on ourselves like, oh, what did I do? Like some spiritual practices want you right before bed to really think back what you did that hurt other people. Kabbalah does suggest that before you go to sleep to do that. And in a way, I like it because before you go to sleep, you're like going back and you're reliving, and then they suggest that you actually mentally take yourself through that and switch it in your mind, like so that you acted differently, and it almost like releases it. But I mean, from my own experience, I've never been able to really go through that. It's a lot, and it's hard for me to even remember at that point, not let alone to take the time, right? Was I'm exhausted and dropping to sleep to like go back through each thing. So just on a practical level, that didn't work for me. I'm not saying as a tool, maybe it is amazing and effective, but it has to be able to be doable. And so the wins, wows, and wishes, very doable. And the wish is like a different take on that. Whereas you can look, just like you said, at what maybe didn't go right, that we went sideways or we acted a certain way, and we just wish for the strength and the help and the insight to do differently. 100%. Yes, yes,
yeah.
yes.
Recognizing that whatever happened, whatever choice you made, like you're on your path. You are exactly where you're meant to be at all times. And yeah, not to live in regrets, because without those things happening, you wouldn't be where you are now, which is exactly where you're supposed to be.
Amen, sister. Awesome. All right. So let's see. For my daily W for Brighter, my first win of today, I am going to say, is that I mommed it out like a motherfucking boss bitch with my daughter, Esther. As I mentioned, I was amazing. I showed up for her. I helped her get a delicious breakfast, which she sometimes has to skip. I made sure she was packing, and I helped her pack a delicious lunch so she will have enough food at school. And I drove her to school, and that was amazing. So that's my win number one. And wow, number one is I am really grateful to have this opportunity to connect with Chelsea in the podcast and in general in my life. I love you so much, Chelsea. You actually do make my life brighter. And so you are my wow today.
Oh, thank you. My wish for today, as I said, I've just gotten back from the travels and everything at the house is put back together. Thank goddess. And my wish is that starting off, finishing the rest of this day, that I am able to move with flow and grace and productivity, and to really mark the things off the list that are most important, and to be okay with the ones that get carried over until tomorrow.
Love it. Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Episode 13 in the books. 13, by the way, is the numerological equivalent to 1, like unity. This is Kabbalistic deep insights, and also Ahava, which means love. So this is the Unity Love episode 13, and we thank you for joining us.
And set those boundaries, showing your self-love.
Hell yeah. We love you. See you next time.
Yes. Until then, may your day be brighter.